Welcome! I'm Bev Adams. I own an independent paper crafting business showcasing products from Stampin' Up! I made this beautiful pop-up card with products from Stampin' Up! I sell these products and also a few items to make crafting more convenient. I have the free detailed directions for this project on my website. You'll be able to click the links for the products that you'd like to be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up! You'll see where to find all of that at the end of this video, so don't worry about taking notes. It's time to put stamps, ink, and paper together. I'm using Beautiful Friendship. I'm using the Forever Flourishing dies. They do not really coordinate. I'm using Hippo and Friends dies. I love these dies. I'm using the number 4 and 5 dies. This number 5 die fits almost perfectly. It looks like it was made to match this stamp. And I'm using the Painted Texture embossing folder. My ink is Rich Razzleberry. My cardstock is the basic white thick cardstock. I have a piece that's about 2.5 by 4. I have a strip that's 1 1/4 by 3.5. I have a piece of Pear Pizzazz that's 4 1/4 by 5.5. It is a tight fit though, so you might want to have some extra available. I have some Rich Razzleberry cardstock that's 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. I have some Rococo Rose cardstock that's 5 1/4 by 4. And my card base is also from Rococo Rose. That's 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. Rococo Rose is one of the in colors from 2019 to 2021, and it is retiring. It is running low, so if you want this, you might want to hurry to order it. If you are not able to get it and you don't have it, you can pick another color that you would like just as well. I thought that the Rococo Rose and the Rich Razzleberry looked lovely together. And I have a medium white envelope. I'm using a brush. This is a fairly stiff regular painter's brush. This is a stipple brush, and both of these work pretty well for using this gilded leafing. And I am using the multi-purpose liquid glue. I don't always specify an adhesive, but you will want this glue and also a strong glue like the Stampin' Seal Plus, or maybe you'd prefer the Tear and Tape adhesive. I also have 3 metallic pearls. I'm using the gold ones. I already have my strip scored at 3/4, 2 1/2, and 3. And you will want to crease these nicely. I have taped the 2 frame pieces, the 4 and the 5 Hippo and Friends dies, and I tried very carefully to keep the spacing even and ran this through the cut and emboss machine. And that gives me this frame and a label. I'm not using this label, but I will sure be keeping that for another card. And now that I have that frame, I'm going to remove that tape. I'm stamping my roses. I want to cut this out with the number 5 die. And I want to cut this out at this point. I have redone this several times because I get out of step. I get ahead of myself. We'll be putting some glue on this. I don't always specify the adhesives, but I do want to specify the multi-purpose liquid glue. And I'm using this as a drawing tool. To draw around the flowers. Now I always keep my glue tip side down. This glue bottle actually has two tips, a broad tip and this pen tip. I virtually never use the broad tip. And so I want to keep that glue at the pointy end. This is a very thick glue, and you want that glue down there because if you have your glue at the other end, you'll start squeezing and kind of waiting impatiently for that glue to work its way down to the tip. And then it's going to be a mess. I've actually had it keep coming out when I didn't want it to. But I'm going to set this aside to dry. When this glue dries, it gets clear and it stays sticky. That's exactly what we want. We want it clear and sticky. I'm going to do some more cutting. We're going to use that same number 5 die in the middle of the Rococo rose. You want to get it as straight as you can because it's actually the outside that we're going to keep for this card. So this is another piece that you might want to save for another project. We're going to kind of dry fit this cardstock in the middle of our card front. And because the die cuts actually away from the opening, we're going to go ahead and fit that die in place and then draw around this opening. And so and we're actually drawing on the card front and not on that cut layer. So that we can then place this back here and see where to cut. And our lines are actually cut off on this extra piece. So if you erase the line, you'll have another piece to use for a different project. And then I'm going to do some embossing. So I'm going to remove the number 2 plate and get out the painted texture embossing folder. And cover that with the 4 plate and roll that through. And I just love this folder. You could also use one of your other embossing folders, maybe the Settle, or putting back my number 2 and 3 plates on top. I'm cutting out this large fern and this kind of double-ended leaves. This is a tight fit. We're actually only using the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tips. So if you want to put this off the edge, and I have 2 of those leaf sections and 2 of those double-ended leaf sections, and I'm just snipping off the bottom 2 sections of the ferns. And I think I forgot to tell you about the basic white cardstock layer that's 4 by 5 1/4. For my sample, I used Happy Birthday to My Beautiful Friend, which is actually from Friends Are Like Seashells. I'm hoping that this will fit nicely, but we do want to put it all the way to the bottom in the middle of that 5 1/4 by 4 basic white piece. We're going to go ahead and put the inside on the inside of the card. And this really doesn't matter which adhesive you use. I often do like the multi-purpose liquid glue just because it gives you a chance to wiggle it around a little bit if you don't get it exactly where you want it. But for this piece, we want to be sure that we use a really strong adhesive. We're going to put adhesive on both ends of this strip. And I don't want to go over the edge, so I'm folding that over. And you want to be sure and have it close to the folds. So this is the piece that goes closest to the fold. We're going to fold the bottom at the 2 1/2 piece. So you've got 2 sections underneath. And we're putting that up to the fold. And then we're just closing the card. So that gives us our pop-up part. And I probably should have put my embossed layer on the front, because having that pop-up part is kind of in the way. I think I very intentionally wrote the directions for that too, and then ignored it. So be sure that you're putting this the same direction, and you want those openings to line up as precisely as you can. Because they were cut with the same die, they should match perfectly. Then we'll put the frame on that, and again, you want to have these match perfectly. This is the one I did for the video, and it is not quite dry where I got extra thick. This was done a little bit earlier, and it's not totally dry, but it's pretty dry. This is where you're going to want a piece of scratch paper. I love this gilding, but honestly, it's easy to make a mess with it. It's very, especially when you live in a dry area like we do, it's awfully staticky. It has basically no weight to it at all. And so it sticks to your fingers or whatever. It will stick to the cardstock, but it also will stick to that glue. So as I cover up all of the glue, I want to brush it around, make sure all the glue I put on there is covered, and then I want to brush off the extra. And don't put your finger in the glue like I did, or you'll have this big old blob like I do. But I think that's going to be okay. So the reason I said it's important to do this in the right order is we want to have that stamping done before we die cut it, so that we know where to cut because it's a tight fit. Then we want to cut it out before we have that glue on it, because that glue will cause problems when it goes through the die machine. Then we have all this extra flakes, and these can go back in the tub. You can use this gilding with a heat and stick powder, so you can stamp it with Versamark and use it just like you would embossing powder, but instead of getting shiny and smooth, it gets sticky. Then you want to use the gilded leafing on that almost immediately. You can also put any adhesive on, like the tear and tape works great if you want to make a frame border for a card. And I think I like it just as well with the multi-purpose liquid glue as anything else, honestly. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and put liquid glue on here. And we want our leaves to go off to the side. I think on the other one I made it go up, so maybe I'll do that. But I want to be sure that it doesn't go off the side of the card. Putting a little bit more adhesive on the very bottom edge here. And I want this one to go down. And a little more adhesive on the top of this, because we're going to put our label here. You do not want to go all the way to the tip top, otherwise you'll be gluing it to this part of the card. Not something you want. So then you're going to close the card and put it back in its frame position. And make sure it fits nicely, and kind of tuck it inside a little bit so that when you open it up and close it, looks pretty. This piece is going to go on the very front. I pretty much followed the stem of these leaves because it fits pretty well to this curve. So I'm putting that over the front. And I want to make sure none of the glue is showing. And then I've got these golden pearls. So I'm going to put one in the middle and one on each side of the middle one. I'm actually deciding I want some extra leaves, I think. So I'm going to snip off some of these and smooth off those leaves. And add them here. To be honest, I couldn't remember if I went up or down with those. I think I went down on my first card, and I wasn't noticing this funny gap here. So yeah, I like that better. So that's it. A shiny, I don't know if you see that shine in the picture. I think you do. A fancy pop-up. Here is the web address for this project, where you'll find the free detailed directions and links for the products I used. Just click the links and you'll be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up! Also on my website, you'll find a shop button, Under Shop, you'll find products from Bev, shopping strategies, frequent shopper points, a link to my online store at Stampin' Up. When you click Products from Bev, you'll find information about sharing my current products notebook in Evernote, and taggers. I started making taggers when all of those layering shapes came out, and it was so hard for me to figure out which one I used and how to tell somebody else which one I used. So I made taggers. Each tagger has the name of the dies, the item number, how many in the set, and each tagger has the size of that shape. I also sell my cardstock sampler, fine tip glue pen replacement tips, and large and small reclosable bags that I use for designer series paper, both the 6x6 and the 12x12. And I have a link for my friend's bow maker. Under inspiration, you can scroll my projects, look at the latest post, find out about the basics, which I've designed especially for new stampers, and techie tips. Under getting organized, you'll find links to stamp case slips, product labels, large labels, case inserts, ink refill cases, lots of coloring tools, a stamp pad storage solution for practically no money, catalog tabs, a quick reference, and a wish list with the catalog index, directions for my basic toolkit to go and my compact desktop toolbox. I have so many people looking for my Evernote current products notebook that I have a new tab just for that. You can find out how to share my searchable catalog. You can go to SIP Together, and you can find out how to join my team so that you can either save money or make money. Thank you for stopping by. Talk to you soon.